Best thing never happened to me professionally in the corporate world was a failure. I finally got the interim VP title that I'd been chasing. And about a month into it, I really wasn't happy.
Hey there, it's Marley Majcher. Before we dig in, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell because you definitely don't want to miss another glorious disaster here on Every Day's a Train Wreck. Because missing an episode, now that would be a train wreck. Let's get to it. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Every Day's a Train Wreck. I'm your host, Marley Majcher, and as usual, I have a fabulous guest for you, Brandon McCraney. He is from Old Raleigh Distillery, and as I told him in the beginning when we were not taping, I said this is going to be the easiest podcast you're ever going to do because there's no plan. I mean, there kind of is, right? But it doesn't matter. It's going to go out the window. And he's just going to tell you some cool stories. He and I have a lot of similarities, which is kind of funny because remember, Old Raleigh, my oldest son is in Raleigh. Yay. And I just can't wait to jump in and talk about booze and talk about how this guy got into the business that he's in and talk about a few of those ups and downs because I'm sure he's had them. So, Brandon, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being such a good sport about all of this.
Harley, a pleasure to be here. Look forward to the conversation.
Yeah, we're going to have fun. Okay, so give us your backstory. Well, first of all, tell us what you do right now,
Sure.
and then let's jump into the backstory.
I'm the founder and owner of a whiskey company called Old Raleigh.
Yeah.
And my craft is I'm a whiskey blender. I guess the title within the business is I'm a master blender at this point.
Nice.
I have the opportunity and to blend whiskey from all over the world and get to do that every day with the team and share my story and my craft with the world. It's a blessing.
When you craft whiskey every day, does that mean you are drinking whiskey every single day while you're crafting? Like, how does that, because in California, everything is so strict, but in North Carolina, I think you got a little more freedom. Can you be boozing with the boys while you're crafting, or what's the protocol there?
Yeah, as a blender, that's your tool is your palate. So
Okay.
it's quite a bit of sampling, testing, sampling barrels, building, I call it packaging whiskey together, different barrels to try to come up with a release. So it could be multiple barrels we're looking at. So yeah, it's quite a bit of sampling. I have a team that supports me and they'll pull me samples of the various barrels that we have. And then my job is to figure out how to package all of these different combinations to come up with something unique.
Okay, then how are you not hammered every single day? I mean, because I would love, I mean, it's like my pal, I'm in the food business, or that's my background. And Lord, I mean, it's really hard not to just be like, oh, today's chocolate cake, let's make sure the quality control is there.
Well, for blending, it's not about getting intoxicated. It's about being mindful of what you're having. So I've got to the point where if I'm pulling samples of whiskey, it's less than a quarter of an ounce is where I know, okay, this is where this thing's going, or these are the attributes of this particular whiskey. And so, yeah, there's an art to it. You can overindulge for sure, but I've just come to the point where, okay, this is my job. So I have to be mindful about what I'm doing and be very disciplined about it as well.
Right. Okay. Well, you don't have the red nose and all that stuff yet, like a lot of my Irish relatives. So that's a good sign. So you're probably not having too much. Okay. So walk us through though the nitty gritty pieces, because just when you're talking about, you've got the barrels and you're sampling these, walk us through we're 5 years old and know nothing about how this process works, because we can all think we know, but then when you're talking about blending and then, there's what's the difference between Scottish whiskey and American whiskey, all those things. Can you just kind of jump in and give us a little masterclass?
Sure. So let's start with whiskey first. Okay.
Okay.
That's a big question we get. What's the difference between bourbon and whiskey and all that stuff? So
Yeah.
when you talk about whiskey is a macro classification of a spirit.
Okay.
And so I'll keep it top level here, but when you talk about whiskey, predominantly it must be distilled from a grain.
Okay.
Then it must be aged in oak. I'll keep it top level there. We can go nerdy on the science, but I'll
Well,
keep
let
it.
me ask. Okay, let me
Yeah.
ask. Okay, yes, but let me ask you a question about that. So when you say okay, so if it's not aged in oak, if it's aged in I don't know cedar or something, grandma's cedar chest, it doesn't count as whiskey.
Well, it depends now. You start
Oh
going
boy.
down the types of whiskey, and that's
Okay.
where you've got macro class of whiskey. And we'll
Okay.
just say those are the two requirements. There's more, but we'll get out of those nerdy
Okay.
details. Just keep it
Okay.
simple. From there, you'll say, okay, bourbon. Bourbon says, okay, well, yes, distilled from grain, aged in an oak container, oak barrel, but bourbon must be made in the United States. It must be distilled, aged, and bottled in the United States. The grain that you're using, the majority of that mash bill or recipe, at least 51%, must be corn. All right. And then in addition to that, it must be aged in a charred first use oak container or barrel. So they just tighten the restrictions.
Okay. Wait. Wait. Okay. So hold on. ADHD girl checking in. So charred. What did you say? Charred oak.
Charred first use oak barrel. Yes.
Charred first use oak barrel. Okay. Why does it have to? What's the deal with the first use?
So a lot of that is where a history of the United States is intertwined with bourbon.
Okay.
And
Now I'm interested. Okay. 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 So tell us a little bit about this.
so historically, bourbon was aged in barrels,
Okay.
but it wasn't restrictive on the type of barrel that could be used.
Okay.
And so in the early 1960s, there was this big revolution where, okay, we want bourbon to be America's spirit, because this is also the time when the Cold War started and vodka was taking off and all of those different things.
Got it.
And so during that time, they said, okay, as in passing America's spirit, the politicians and all of our elected officials, they passed that legislation making it official. But
Got
when
it.
they did that, inserted in that legislation, I believe it was some legislators from Kansas, they said, okay, it must be a charred oak barrel, but it must be a charred first use barrel. And the reason they inserted that in there was the lumber industry was huge in Kansas. So if they, by doing that, it gave their constituents job security for decades to come.
God bless it. There is always something. You got to love an American, man. There's some kind of lobby, even lobbyist when there isn't even a lobbyist. Okay.
Yeah.
So, okay, well, this is actually very cool because I've been doing these TV segments already, prepping for America's 250. So I don't think I got the whole bourbon. I'm gonna like kind of pitch this as part of my deal because that's very very cool. So it's okay. So it's the and and wait, why oak? I mean, because I mean, I get the lumber industry, but do we have a lot of oak trees in Raleigh or just wherever?
In the US, yes, we have quite a bit.
Okay, so then here's my next question. So I'm developing these fire prevention products, right? As soon as I hear charred, I'm like, how do you char something without burning it up? Because yours truly would absolutely set the thing on fire.
All right, so the process for making a barrel,
Yeah.
that's one of the steps in the process. So they'll harvest a tree,
Okay.
and they'll cut up the wood and cut them into what we call staves. Staves are what make the barrel.
Okay.
After they're done creating these staves, you can specify if you wanted to age outside to break down the wood a little bit to impart a different flavor profile on the whiskey.
Mm,
But when it comes time to create the barrel, you
yeah.
put the staves together. You have your hoops
The
that base
who? The
the
what?
hoops. So you
Oh,
have
the
these.
hoops. I thought you said the hoots. I was like, we are really out of my league here. Okay, the hoops. Okay, that makes so you got the hoops because that's like at the top and the bottom, right?
Yes, yes. So you
Okay.
have multiple hoops to keep the barrel together.
Ah, okay.
And once you've done that, you take the barrel and in the middle, you sit it on top of what you can impart a flame to the inside of that wood. And depending on the length of time, it's going to give you, it starts to give you a char level. The inside of the wood gets charred. So it looks
Okay, but
almost
how
like,
does it not get on fire? Is it because the wood is so like fresh or whatever?
well, you're only imparting the flame on the inside. So you want to do it just enough to give you a nice sear. I guess you're thinking about food, a little sear
Yeah,
on the
yeah.
inside.
Okay.
And so, but that plays a pivotal role with aging bourbon in particular. That char will help bring out some of the impurities in the whiskey as it's aging.
So you char the inside, but you don't char the outside. So it really is supposed to affect the flavor, right? Because charring the outside is not going to do anything theoretically, or is it?
No, you wouldn't char the outside. Just keep it on the inside. And it
Okay.
really flavor development. It's stripping out impurities,
Okay.
but what creates the whiskey profile, let's say of bourbon, we're talking about it here,
Hmm.
is the seasonal changes. So in the southern U.S., we're in outside of Raleigh, North Carolina. It gets hot in our barrel area, and so when it gets hot inside the barrel, gets hot as well. It causes a pressure increase, and then that is what starts forcing the liquid through the char level into the wood, starts interacting with all these yummy wood compounds. And then in the fall, the temperature drops, so that pressure will release, and all that whiskey goes back into the barrel. So with whiskey, it's just a continuous evolution of expansion, and contraction. And with that develops more and more complexities for the whiskey.
Okay, I realized that I made the decision to have you on here. I had no idea it was going to be as self-serving as it was because like I'm like the geek that watches these like history of America and
Mhm.
whatever brothels and booze and all this other stuff and I'm telling you I had no idea. This is literally like a masterclass because I had no idea that the expansion and contraction all that happened also because of the weather. I mean, makes perfect sense.
Mhm.
But and I'm gardener girl here too, and I know how much soil and everything I mean, all these different things affect, but this is amazing. Okay. So we got the basics, we got the container down, right?
Mhm.
Now what's next?
So once you have the barrel,
Yeah.
that is what is housing the whiskey, or let's just say bourbon. From there, it's the distillation process.
Just in case somebody's like, okay, Kana, I think I know, but what is the distillation process?
All right. So when you talk about distillation, the first half of that, if you're familiar with a brewery, that's
Yeah.
what's going on. So you'll take the grain and you'll you'll grind it up, and then you'll put it in a cooker, a mash cooker, and that will cook the grain to break down the starches and the sugars. So then when you're done cooking it, you put it in what's called a fermenter. And that fermenter then, because you broke down the starches and the sugars, you throw yeast in there. Yeast basically have a all-you-can-eat buffet for a couple of days, and it starts eating all those sugars, converts it
Mhm.
into two things. One is CO2, which goes up in the atmosphere,
Yeah.
or they create alcohol. And so at that point, you essentially have a beer. But we're talking about distillation, wanting to make whiskey. So then we'll take that fermented mash and place it in a pot still or a column still,
Okay. And
running
what
it.
in the world is a pot still or a calm still? Now you got to remember, like we are not in Raleigh. I mean, I had who was that guy, the one the moonshiner show or whatever, little jigger or little snuggler or something, and he died. I mean, what God bless it. And these people are out in the woods and whatever. You got to remember this. Let's break this down for this audience here. So get a little more granular, pun
Okay.
intended.
So you place the mash in the still,
Okay.
and then you inject heat. And as you
Okay.
inject heat, at various temperatures, vapors will start going off the still,
Okay.
the process. And as it's going off the still, at the end of that piece of equipment, you're going to have something that cools down that liquid to turn it back, that vapor to turn it back into a liquid. All right.
Got it.
So once you run through that process, typically you'll do it two times, and you do it two times. The first time increases the proof a little bit, and then you'll do it a second time, and that's what will get it up to really high proof, which is what we're looking for in bourbon. You can distill it up to 160 proof. The reason
Okay.
for up to 160 proof, again, goes back to all those restrictions and requirements that they created.
So they're saying 160 because this is like Americans are saying, "Hey, listen, we want you to get hammered, but not too hammered," right?
Well, they keep it at 160 and below because
Yeah.
at that proof and below, you still have congeners and fats that are in the alcohol, and that's what interact with the barrel to give bourbon its unique
What
characteristics.
in the God's name is congener? I swear to you, I've never even heard that word.
So they are just think of them as flavor components in,
Okay.
in, in the clear spirit. And so you
Okay.
want to keep those in that liquid because when they go in and out of that wood, they'll
Yeah.
start developing yummy flavor components.
Got it. And if it's too hot, it's like if it's got it. Okay, if it's too hot, it's just like you've overcooked the carrots or something and it's just like useless. So not you're not going to get any contribution from it
Yeah, the
flavor-wise.
higher you distill, so anything if you start going above 160, the
Yeah.
proof goes higher and those Cosners and the fats and the alcohol, they start getting stripped out of the liquid. So
Okay.
you more of just think of the heat,
Yeah.
more heat. So Everclear was just the heat, right? It
Okay.
was hot.
Yeah.
But we want our whiskey to have some character to it, so we keep it 160 and below, in particular with bourbon.
I know what a still is because, well, first of all, I have a goat named Moonshine, but I want to, no joke. And I'm building this ranch in San Ynez and I'm determined I'm going to have a still, et cetera, et cetera. So I actually have researched these, but I think they're the coolest things ever. But can you tell everybody what a still is?
A still is a piece of equipment that you can use to convert a base of something that
Hmm.
contains alcohol to a higher base of alcohol, all right,
Got it.
in liquid form.
Got it. And it's got all these different like pipes and contraptions and stuff. Like some of the ones that I was looking at, they're like copper and everything, right? I mean, some of them are like no fooling around.
Yeah, they're big. Yeah, and they can be very big. And copper has a role in the process. It helps strip out some impurities in the whiskey, let's just say, or just in general. And you don't
Got it.
want those off-putting notes showing themselves in the glass. So it plays a role in helping strip that out.
Okay. Very cool. Okay. So now back to the master class. Do you see how it's going like step 1, 2, 3, and then 12 rabbit holes? Okay. So we're back. Now we're at 160 or under. And we heard about, what was it, a codgener?
Hmm.
Okay. Yay. And now what?
So now that you've ran through the distillation
Yeah.
process, you have a clear spirit. And
Okay.
we're talking about whiskey or we're talking about bourbon specifically here. You then take that clear spirit and place it into that barrel
Okay.
that you had just had made and brought in for you.
When you say a clear spirit, do you mean at this point that it's like clear like vodka?
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, so it's not brown yet.
No, not yet.
Oh, got it. Okay, so we call it, the brown. Okay, so it's not the brown juice yet, like my Irish friends like. Okay, so keep going.
So that then is when the barrel plays a critical role in the aging process. So you
Okay.
put that clear spirit in the barrel,
Yeah.
it gets hot, temperature increases, that liquid starts going into the wood, picking up some of that brown component that you're talking about, the color.
Aha.
So
Okay.
in the fall, the temperature drops, the liquid contracts,
Yeah.
and so then it's brought into the barrel. And so the character and the color starts to develop more and more.
Now, how do you make sure that like spiders and things don't get in the barrels?
All these things are Loctite sealed.
Okay, well,
So
we missed that part. Okay, so they go, the clear spirit go. I mean, okay, clear spirit goes in the charred barrel, and then you put it in a Ziploc bag. What do you when it's sealed? How?
so before the barrels are brought into a distillery, the cooperage is the place that makes the barrels.
Okay,
They will pressure test it with water to make sure there's no seals. The
got it.
crazy part about this wood is there's no nails, there's no glue. It literally is just sealed wood.
Because that's my next thing. Are we going to start getting barrels from China and everything? They've got some damn kind of glue that California is going to ban. Okay, so there are no. So this is like just the. I need to. Can you put me in touch with a barrel maker? I mean, I need to talk to that guy. Like, I'm like blown away. So, and obvious, I guess, of course, there couldn't be glue or nails because for a lot of reasons, but you're just taking these pieces of wood and then you're using the hoops, and so they have to take this shape. No wonder freaking booze is expensive. People, you should stop complaining. It should be more expensive. So you've got these hoops. You shape it. It's got to go in the winter and the summer and all this damn stuff. And they're sealed, but without glue or nails. This is like something like how the Roman Empire or Stonehenge or something. Okay, so no glue and nails. And how do they even do that? Like
Well,
how could you possibly do it where it's not going to get one leak?
that's the art and craft of being a cooper in a cooperage.
All
Yeah.
right. Well, I need one of them tomorrow. So if you find your publicist or your neighbor there, and I need to talk to one of them, please. Like, give them my cell phone because that's the next step here. All right. So they pressure test those before they get to you, but probably even before they char them. Is that right?
Yes. No, no, they'll char it, and then when they seal it, so, where you insert the whiskey is called a bung hole, and then they've got
Fudge me. This is we're gonna be here for 2 hours. Okay. A
and
bung hole. No joke.
no joke,
All right. A
you
bung
have
hole. All right.
a bung that plugs the bung hole, and that is what seals all the liquid into the barrel.
Dude, you are me right now. You got a bung that plugs the bung hole, and that's what s- then okay. So that's what keeps it all in there.
Yes.
And but I'm still back to how is it not like leaking out of those slats?
They're sealed tight. I mean, they're cut perfect to perfection, and then the hoops actually keep them in place, so it builds out the barrel, and
Yeah.
then they add a barrel head on each side to
Yeah.
to close it out, and then from there, pressure test it with water through the bung hole, inserting water in there, making sure there's no leakage,
All
and
right.
then once they do that, they seal the bung, and then they send it to a distillery where it gets quickly filled.
Okay, so I just like to do like a little mid-time shout out here for Old Raleigh because you people, as I say, I don't want to hear one more word about the trends of these brown juices going up in cost because no wonder they're going up in cost. I'm still literally blown away at all the steps and the guy that's cutting I want to talk to the guy too that's cutting the trees. My lord. Okay. I mean, I couldn't nail a cross together if I had to. All right. So you send off the distillery. Now, is the distillery you guys?
So I'm a blender by trade. So
Okay.
actually, what we do now is I partner with other distilleries that does the distillation process
Okay.
and the aging process, and then what I will do then is connecting through a network of folks.
Yeah.
I'll have samples of whiskey brought to me to see if they meet the caliber and quality that I'm looking for, and then if so, I will procure those barrels and we will age them here and let them
Oh,
continue.
okay. This is huge. Okay. So wait a so pause. You guys you get the whiskey from other whiskey people, right? Or no? So you're not doing the still, you're not doing that piece. Or are you?
We're not, and where every day's a train wreck. I've had a
Yeah?
couple train wrecks that led to that happening.
Oh, beautiful. Okay, now I knew it. I knew if I just poked the bear enough, I'd get what I wanted. Okay, so you guys bring, again, we're going to get to that in a second. Don't you worry. So it's a little bit like the upfronts in TV. Like the whiskey guys come to you and they're like, hey, like, use us, use us, right?
A little bit of that, yeah.
Okay, and then you're gonna taste it. It's like in the restaurant business, like the vegetable purveyors, like all the purveyors come in and like, oh, look at this amazing stuff. Okay, so they come to you. It's like a chef's ingredient. So they're bringing the pieces to you, and you're sitting there going, ooh, I like this, and then in your talent is then, I mean, among many things, but it's saying, oh, I tasted this and I tasted this, and this would be great with this, and then I'm gonna add a little bit of this and a sprinkle of that and that's how you get Old Raleigh, right?
Yeah, that's exactly it. So our barrel
Oh,
area, we actually call it our pantry. And
oh,
analogy I use is I'm a chef back there in the kitchen, and
got
I'm
it.
picking out individual barrels, kind of like my spice rack, to put
Oh,
together a unique dish. And our spin on what we do at Old Raleigh is we don't replicate any batch that we ever create. And
oh,
so
wait, this is super important. Okay, so then how big are those batches?
they could range from 1,600 bottles, which is a rounding error for a big brand,
Sure.
to do one of one bottles. So in doing that, I've created a business where I can just free form create as an artist, one off unique whiskey concoctions and share it with the world.
Can you have a party goddess one? I mean, now, like, oh my goodness gracious. S- Okay, like this is so inappropriate as a host to be just like continuously blown away. But first, I was like blown away by all these vocabulary words. But now this is even cooler than I thought. So okay, so you have the different whiskeys and then what else potentially are you adding to it? Like I'm not trying to get you to give away your
Mhm.
intellectual property here, but what types of things can go in that? Are you like, "Oh, let's add some cloves and some orange rind," or like what kind of stuff?
Yeah, none of that. So if I'm looking to build out a batch of, let's just say, small batch bourbon or barrel proof bourbon, what I'm doing is visually, it's kind of like building a bouquet of flowers. So
Okay.
you've got some barrels, maybe add some volume to the whiskey. I say give it a nice mouthfeel. So coats the
Okay.
tongue. It's really nice. And
Okay.
then some of the barrels might just have a lot of character, maybe have a finish that lasts 20 or 30 seconds. And some of them might hit up front, have a lot of caramel spice notes up front. And so
And
my
is
job,
that so pause a second. Is how okay, so you're getting these barrels from so how would it have like a caramel spice note? Is that because of the wood barrels types that they're aged in? Is that because of, you know, like those are coming from Tennessee that has warmer summers or cooler or like what goes into those to how you get what you're describing
so
before it
common
comes
note,
to you?
yeah, common note you'll find with in bourbon that you'll hear out there is caramel and vanilla. And where those occur is when that corn whiskey, which is the dominant grain in bourbon, when it
Okay.
starts interacting with that first use wood,
Yeah.
it's going to give you various spectrums of caramel. With
Oh,
vanilla, when they're create or toasting the wood, it creates a compound called vanillin. And it's called vanillin because it's got a lot of aromatic compound
okay.
similarities to vanilla. So that's where that comes in, the sweet notes of the bourbon. The
Right.
second would be the spice, and where spice can impart itself is bourbon, for the most part, is going to use a secondary grain in its recipe or its mash bill. And
Okay.
so the most common one out there is used is rye. And
Okay.
they add the rye because it adds a little more complexity to the whiskey. But with rye, you're going to get various spectrums of spice. So
Got it.
that's what impart itself on the whiskey.
Like, so what happens if you switch like rye for quinoa or something? Like, I mean, can you just, is this just a like
You could.
melange of options or no?
Yeah, I mean, you certainly could. The consumer is always the dictator of what works and what doesn't, right? So you'll see rye is the most common secondary grain, or wheat also.
And why? Because to me, rye I can see because rye has like a distinct flavor. I could see how you could kind of pull that up and down. Wheat is, and please nobody in the Midwest like tell me I haven't tried your wheat or whatever. I understand that, but to me it seems like rye has so much more of a strong potential flavor than wheat. Is that right or no?
Well, just different. So
Okay.
wheat won't be as spicy. It's a bit of little more subtle, some more
Okay.
nuttier notes I found in the
Okay.
ones we use. But you go back historically, most traditional cocktails you'll found they're made from include a rye whiskey, Sazerac, old fashions historically, and that's because the rye, the spice of that, can help stand up to the bitters or the liqueurs that they traditionally used to make. So that's where rye was known for is balancing out a nice cocktail because the spice then falls
Okay. Now when you say the bitters, are you saying literally like bitters like you put in a drink or are
on
bitters somehow some part of whiskey making?
like the bitters, like if you're a mixologist and
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
drop them.
Okay. I'm very familiar with bitters because when I used to have a really bad stomach and I would have like soda water with bitters.
Really?
And yeah, so yeah, if you have a bad stomach, no joke, you have soda water with bitters, your life will change. I did that. I had 3 pregnancies. I was barfing through all of them. Bitters, I mean, yeah,
Was it a
huge, 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 huge.
particular?
You give it to kids because I don't, as far as I know, bitters
Mm.
doesn't have any alcohol in it. But no, it makes a big difference, and it kind of makes a big difference fast. I have to say, it's random, but yeah, there you go.
Did it matter what type of bitters you used?
Not as far as I could tell, because I mean, and who knows? Maybe it was psychosomatic. Like, I'd be at a bar and I'd be like, oh, I'm not like just, as I say, I would have chronic kind of stomach troubles and whatever bitters they had, they seemed to work. And maybe it was one of those things where, because I believed it would work, but I mean, maybe there's some that work better than others, but no, it just, maybe the bubbles of the club soda or yeah, with, plus the bitters, but no, it definitely makes a big difference. And it's kind of funny because I had this naturopath. So when I was going through all these things with my stomach and it was like nobody could figure it out. And she would sell me this big bottle of bitters with a dropper, right? And so it was like depending on how bad my stomach was, I'd take the bitters and add more and more. Like if I had to do a podcast, for example, and I wasn't feeling so hot, I'd really amp it up. But there is, maybe that's another podcast, but it's kind of interesting. Okay. So the, which one was it then? Now back to the topic. Which one was it that that the bitters helped balance? I mean, that the thing helped balance the bitters? Was it rye
Also,
or
traditional
wheat?
cocktails, rye whiskey, just a rye
Got it.
whiskey.
Right. Okay. Got it. Got it. Got it. Okay. Now that completely makes sense to me, having tasted so many bitters. Okay. Cool. So, all right, let's keep going. Next step in the process.
So I believe we were talking about why a secondary grain. We covered
Yeah.
that.
Okay. We're back to the secondary grain. Okay. So now we're back to the chef in the kitchen, and now you're kind of adding. Okay. So keep going. So you got the
Um,
secondary grain. Do you always have to have the secondary grain?
no,
Ah. Okay.
not with bourbon. Just as commonly, they're going to add a secondary grain and a little bit of barley in there too, but really doesn't impart a flavor on it. It helps with yielding more alcohol.
Got it. Okay. Got it. Okay. So then what?
From there, what I'm trying to do is build that bouquet of flowers. Right?
Okay.
And so I'm trying when I'm sampling barrels, I'm almost figuring out how to layer them on top of each other so they add
Okay.
more complexity. So I guess you get some of putting them all together gives you something greater than
Oh yeah, greater than the sum of its parts. Yeah,
yeah.
or something like that. Yeah.
So that would be one direction I would go. Or
Okay.
what I can also do is start relationships with estates around the world to, let's say they make Armagnac, fortified
Yeah.
wine from France. And so I can import some of those casks after they're done using them. And then
Yeah.
I can place the whiskey in those casks and then let them age. And so when that expansion and contraction happens, whatever was in there, that Armagnac, for example, some of those
Yeah.
notes will start to impart themselves on the whiskey over time. And we'll do a unique product featuring, let's just say, an Armagnac cask finish.
You're not necessarily even adding Armagnac to yours. You're just taking so those casks have absorbed, and then that's kind of cool. So if it's Armagnac, obviously from France, then those casks are going to be French wood, right?
Could, depending on what the source was. I mean, it might be
But
French.
potentially it could be.
Sure. Yeah.
It's anyway. It's different kind of wood than is in North Carolina. Let's say.
Yeah. So French oak would have it's a slow growth tree, so a lot tighter bands in the wood. And as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to American, let's say Missouri oak, which has
Yeah.
a faster grower, but
Yeah.
also the bands aren't as tight. So yeah, it will definitely impart a different flavor profile in the whiskey.
And then what does that matter if the bands are tight? The bands of the tree, like you mean like the rings of the tree?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what does that matter if they're tight?
Yeah, just that's a slow growth tree. And
Yeah.
so the toolkit that this could offer the whiskey is a different toolkit than the one you might find with American oak.
They would potentially have the casks in Europe or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And you would say to them, "Hey guys, when you're done, I want to buy them from you."
Yes.
Or and then they would ship these empty casks to you,
Mm-hmm.
and you would then just start. Now, would you use them like one time, or would you blend your whiskey and in them, and then I would assume that time you did it would get like the first run of them from being Armagnac to what you're doing is going to get the most amount of Armagnac flavor, right?
It'll be the strongest, yes,
Okay.
but you can reuse that cast several times.
So you can reuse it several times, but then that's going to change your batch of what you're doing, right?
Or I may need to age it longer to get that strong of a flavor.
Got it.
That's where the blending process, the aging process is critical in blending whiskey or aging and harvesting whiskey.
Okay, so that's probably then where, if I'm correct, then you're um aging it, so you're testing it, right? To see if it's kind of ready for you
Yes.
to use.
Yeah,
Okay. Is that, are you doing that from the bunghole? How are you doing that?
yes.
How do you
I'll have my team, production team. I'll say, okay, I want to sample the Armagnac cask. Pull me 1 ounce bottle of that, and I may have 5 or 6 others. So I can see how they're developing in character and determining, is it ready for harvest or do I need to let it run a couple more months? And that's what my critical role is in the process.
Okay, but that's where you get it out of the bunghole.
Yes, that's where the
Okay.
bunghole comes into play.
All right. So then you say effectively, so it's like a chef saying that the fish is ready or not ready. I mean, you are like, okay, now we're good. And
Mhm.
now you're going to start blending it. Well, like what happens if one component is ready and the other one isn't? How do you
Then,
deal with that?
well, our philosophy is we won't harvest it. We'll let it
Ah,
wait, which is the
okay.
reason why we're family owned and operated. I
Yeah.
did not want private equity to start us up because, well, they want to get big and as quick as
Yeah.
possible. And I did not want to water down the quality products. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm my own consumer. So I want, if I'm putting my name on a
Right.
bottle, I want to enjoy what it is that we're harvesting.
So there is a time when you're having more than a quarter of an ounce. I mean, you are going home at some point in a rocking chair and saying, now, thank God I'm head of Old Raleigh, right?
Yeah, there's some of that. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Now, do you have certain times of the year when you're like blend or are you just kind of always blending and always putting them in casks or like what's your like yearly cycle?
Over the next year, we're gonna create a hundred and over 180 different releases.
How is that even how can you even think of like 180 different I just that's to me like 180 different brownies. Like it's like I mean that cuz you're talking about your one spirit, right? You're not saying when you're saying 180, you're not talking about you're also in the vodka business and you're also in the whatever. This is just 180 of whiskey or right?
Yeah, I'm a one trick pony. I just want to focus on whiskey.
Wow. That is amazing. Okay, remind everybody how long you've been doing this.
So I've been, I mean, blending for goodness, probably a decade.
And
Um,
how did you start that?
so it started out as a hobby. Just I was that guy 15 years ago that had a crazy whiskey collection back before it was the cool thing.
Yeah?
And so I was climbing that corporate ladder, and it was just a hobby that started to grow
Yeah?
and grow. And I started going to some workshops, and never thought this was going to be what I would pursue professionally. But
Honey, we never do. Let me tell you, we never do. When I went off to France my junior year and the summer before my junior, Lord knows did I think I'd come back with a husband a couple years later. Okay, so all right, so you're doing this and then you're like, this is cool, but like what was your day job? Did you have a day job at that point or
did. Yes, I was in the corporate world. I was in sales and business development. My previous, before I did this, I helped them start a division and scale it. And so it
got it.
was
Okay, because you look about 12 years old. So anybody who's gonna like you guys want to watch this on our YouTube channel. So I don't that's why I had to ask the man, like, I don't know if he's just trust fund and he got out of college and
no,
went to okay. So you had a career in sales, by the way, which I think everybody should have because if you can sell, I think it really helps the entrepreneurial journey. But you got
no.
okay, so you do these classes and then what?
The best thing that ever happened to me professionally in the corporate world was a failure.
I would know nothing about that. What happened, baby? Did you get fired?
Well, I finally got the interim VP title that I'd been chasing.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Okay.
And about a month into it, I really wasn't happy. And it just kind of had this reflection point of this, I've been chasing a title. And the best thing that ever happened to me, the failure was I ultimately didn't get the job. Somebody
Mhm.
way more qualified, an outside hire, and he was specific to that industry, loved it, perfect fit. But that
Bless
was,
those people.
yeah, December 2016 is when all that happened, and this thing that was growing on the side, that path just intersected with I'm not happy professionally. I think this is what I want to do. And so at that time, making great money. I mean, I had all the options you could think of,
I'm
and
sure you did it. That's the devil. I'm telling you, that is the devil. When you've got all these, like everything is amazing on one thing, but you're like, but it's not right.
yeah,
And then, the spouse or whoever is involved significantly in your life is like, okay, but it needs to be right because like you just need to keep down the but yeah, I get it. But your
and that's where
passion,
my wife came into play there. I mean, I said I think I want to start a whiskey company, and I was expecting her to say, have your midlife crisis in about 20 years.
Yeah,
Life is
exactly, and or bye-bye, I'm now gonna go off with the Cabana Boy. Okay, at the, Old Raleigh Country Club. All right, yeah, and
she didn't do that. She said, "I think you would be good at this for XYZ reason." Granted, we were drink holiday movie over a bottle of wine. That probably helped.
oh, wow, which movie?
Oh, okay. Is
Guarantee you
Christmas
she knows, boy,
Vacation,
and she
Chevy Chase, Christmas Vacation.
okay, there I was gonna say, 'cause she if you didn't come up with that, boy, she'd be listening to this and you would be night night. You'd be back on the market. All right, so how long had you guys been together? So that was 10 years ago almost,
Oh
right?
goodness, we've been together 20,
Oh,
20,
okay,
20.
so she had a run with you. It wasn't just like you guys were hanging out and got married 10 minutes before. So she knew you were a keeper.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Unless she has her doubts now after listening to this podcast. Okay. So she says go for it. That's almost 10 years ago. And then what does that look like? You say goodbye to your all your
No, no, I was far from that. So
okay.
I went to Louisville, Kentucky. They
Okay.
have this place called Moonshine University.
Oh my
Eh,
God.
no,
Where are those people? Do you have a professor there I could talk to? Literally, I'm not joking. I have a goat named Moonshine. I am obsessed with moonshine. Keep going.
So, so they have a cadre of folks that basically will give you a crash course on if you want to start a whiskey company or distillery. A lot of regulation. So I wanted to be informed on all that because outside of the pharmaceutical industry, spirits are the most highly regulated in the country.
Really?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Oh, I had no idea. Okay, keep going. That's very
So
cool.
third day in of that week-long course is when I knew this is what I wanted to do. I left out of there naively thinking in 6 months I'll have this whiskey company started,
Yeah.
and that was far from it. I
Yeah.
had a long journey along the way. I was originally we were trying to be in Raleigh
Mhm.
because we live in Raleigh. That's the name Old Raleigh. So I started the business, meeting with the city, and I said, "Look, I want to bring in whiskey from all over the world and make these really unique one-off creations." And so they interpreted that as you want to bring in a lot of highly flammable liquid, put that into one building. You need to be in an industrial park somewhere. And so I spent 2 years finding all the wrong locations.
Mm.
Industrial parks have no character, no foot traffic.
No,
It
exactly.
just did not fit my vision. So 2 years into that, said this isn't working, and I started looking around the suburbs. And I'm currently in Zebulon, North Carolina. It was March of 2019. Found this vacant department store. This downtown had been,
Department store?
yeah, a 10,000 square foot department store.
Oh my gosh, awesome. Okay, keep going. Now that's a fabulous time in life to be doing anything is March 2019 or whatever, right?
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah.
Well, at that point, I was just wasn't happy at work.
Mhm.
The plan, though, was that I was going to do this full time in about 4 or 5 years after that. So, and
Okay.
the reason for that is the distillery scene in North Carolina back in 2019, at the beginning of 2019, was you could come to a distillery tasting room, have a sample, and I can sell you up to 5 bottles per calendar year. I'd have to write down your driver's license number. So, and if I oversold you 6 bottles, they get stripped my license. So at the time, how you would really make your revenue would be in stores. And this is a control state. So we have about, I think, over 400 stores in the state, but they're controlled by 171 boards that make all decisions independently.
So control state means what exactly?
So North Carolina controls the alcohol in this state. So you have
Okay.
to go to a store, and it's an ABC store run by the state, and
Alcohol beverage control.
so they
Okay.
control the flow of all of the liquor in the
Oh,
state.
that's a whole other story. Okay.
Yeah.
There we go again. Okay. Keep
So it's
going.
gonna so it's gonna take a while to get into a lot of stores because if you're a small guy relative to the big brands of the world with the big marketing budget, they also have the relationship with the distributor.
Of course.
So you really got your cards stacked against you.
Yeah.
So it was going to be part time, and then halfway through closing on the building, the distillers in the state got together and they hired a lobbyist, and that really changed my life because what was passed that year was they said, "Hey, if you got a tasting room, you can also have a mixed beverage wine and a beer permit, so
Mm.
essentially be a full functioning bar."
Oh,
And then they
wow.
eliminated the number of bottles that you could purchase at the distillery as well.
Thank you, Jesus, for the lobbyists. Okay.
Yeah, so that happened, and I never thought about being a bar owner, but there was nothing in downtown Zebulon that fit that bill, and ran some numbers and went to my wife, got down on my knees and begged her to let me do this full
Please
time.
baby Jesus, don't leave me. And okay, yeah.
She said yes, and 3 days later, I resigned my corporate job. I said, "I'm all in. I'm gonna figure this out." The caveat in that story was I had no money for the business. I bought a building. So all the demo in here I had to do myself as I was trying to get a bank loan, an SBA loan, and was rejected
I
12
was gonna
times.
say, how'd that go? Wow, that's another whole podcast. Jesus.
Not
Excuse my
fun.
language.
Yeah, it was not fun. I did get approved on the 13th bank, and that ultimately is what made this reality. That was December of 2019, and so I received a loan to build out the construction. So the county had approved the design of the
Hmm.
distillery. The SBA loan, I bid out the work, and that's what was going to pay for that. And then I said, I took my wife out for lunch. I told her what I did that day. She cussed me out something fierce for
I'm
sure.
sure she damn did. Okay, yeah. All right.
But I said, honey, look, we've got this schedule, and we, based off this, we're going to be open the first week of April 2020, which is right when COVID hit.
Yeah. Hmm.
So that did not happen. We actually didn't open until January 2021. But COVID really it impacted supply chain. What delayed us was the county that all the inspectors that approved the design once we started construction made me start changing everything they approved. And the impact of that we never recovered from. So we went through all our construction money, contingency money, all the money for our process piping for our stills. And then I had to wipe out our 401k to make sure we opened third week of January
And
2020.
so I want to pause right there. Okay. And maybe this is a note to myself, but there are a lot of people that listen to this podcast. And by the way, last time I checked, we were like in 73 countries or something. And while we might be talking about an American product, this goes for international business. And what people who start businesses do not understand, and I want to underscore it 1,000 times, is the failure component. There, as far as I know, I have never interviewed them nor come across somebody who says, yes, I got the first SBA loan I applied for. Yes, I got my favorite building. Yes, like it doesn't happen that way. And so I want to underscore all of these dramas and things that you went through because you're not an anomaly. We all go through them and continue to go through them. And if you're not like going through kind of some big ones, then you're not working on big stuff because it's literally par for the course. And here's the thing. I'm also saying this because entrepreneurs who are married to non-entrepreneurs or in relationships with them or have parents who are not entrepreneurs don't get it, right? They don't understand. How could you do your whole 401k? How could you do this? How could you do? And it's because you have a dream that needs to be realized. It's like a fire in your chest. Correct me if I'm wrong. And it's like come hell or high water, you're gonna make it work. And you need that in order to keep going because like you said, it was the 13th bank loan. I mean, most people would just stop applying. Like I've been doing this bank stuff with my ranch and everything. I mean, Lord have mercy. I mean, you would think I was trying to say, hey, I'm going to do a, crack station under a freeway. I'm actually probably if I said that, I probably would get California subsidies. But right. So it is hard. And it is hard on, like they say, alcoholism affects the whole family. I'm sorry, entrepreneurship affects the whole family because everybody is part of that, right? Like you have a bad day, you have a whatever, it's going to affect your wife, all those things. So keep going. I finished my monologue.
Yeah, so my motivation, all that was, my wife said, look, I support you in doing this. We just can't lose our house. One.
Yeah.
Two, in order to get the loan, I had to back every asset that we had to ensure that basically is collateral to get the loan.
Yeah.
So having
And
a
by the
failed
way,
house goes a
another
long.
note on that, that is not uncommon. So, like we learn in business, oh, just don't ever sign a personal guarantee. Well, you know what? Best of luck with that when you're in the real estate business or whatever. Not even real estate business. When you buy real estate or something, you are going to be shackled and but they're going to find that money no matter what. So just a heads up. So if that turns your stomach, which it turns mine just talking about, even though I've done it 1,000 times, that's just part of the process. So okay, keep going.
So we make it to opening.
Yeah.
Now, keep in mind, 2019, the premise of our brand was we have all this distillation equipment. I was
Yeah.
going to train a staff to operate that
Uh-huh.
and then let the whiskey age for at least 4 years. And then I would be able to blend my own whiskey.
And then what were you going to be doing in those 4 years though?
In the interim, I was going to just start sourcing barrels from other people.
Well, how are
Um,
you going to make money in the 4 years?
well,
Your
we got
wife has money?
well, you
What?
got that's what the tasting room bar is for.
Oh, got it. Right, because you would have had that. So,
Yeah.
okay, now I got it. All right. Keep going.
So when we opened and I couldn't start the distillation process because we had no process prior. I mean, I was coasting on fumes. People, hey, what's your 5-year plan? It was pay the heating bill for
I was
February. Like that's
That's my
where.
favorite when these flippers say, "What's your 5-year plan?" It's like, "Sir, I am." Have you heard like in AA when they say like one day at a time? I'm like, I am in my 5-minute moment at a time, right? Like if I make it to lunch, we are doing great. Yeah, keep going.
Oh yeah, we opened. I was afraid to hire a staff
Yep.
because we didn't know if anybody was going to show up from the town to support what we had. And at
Yep.
the time, you had what 8, 9 months of bars and restaurants barely surviving. And I'm very mindful about employing people, so I didn't
Right.
want someone to leave an opportunity where they finally made it through the 9 months or still were
Right.
able to come over and then nobody shows up. So I was working the bar, wife was working the bar. It was interesting times for sure.
Yeah.
But back to we're operating. I then started networking to try to procure barrels, and because I bootstrapped to get open, I was having a hard time having people respond to me. And the reason that was is when you see a lot of whiskey brands, or you see any brand out there, and
Mhm.
overnight they're in 20 states, right? Like Kevin Hart's new thing that's been successful. Well, behind the scenes of that are some very wealthy people
Yep.
going in and they're buying for whiskey, for example, hundreds, if not thousands of barrels. And
Yes.
they'll buy multiple years of it to fund the growth of the brand.
Yeah.
Well, I bootstrapped to get open. So I was calling up these same folks going, hey, can I get 2 barrels, 3 barrels? We don't got time for you.
No.
But
Yeah.
it just so happens I was persistent, continuing knocking on doors until somebody had a soft spot for me, and they said, "Okay, we'll let you access these lots and let us know what you think because your order of 2 might turn into 4 and then 8 one day,
And
etc."
how many of those did you go through before you got the one that said yes? Just out of curiosity.
Oh goodness, I mean, I don't even remember. It would go weeks and weeks with people just not responding.
Thank you very much. Okay, my thank you made my point. So, again, just because somebody doesn't respond, just because somebody doesn't it you just got to keep knocking on the doors. It's like literally a numbers game.
Yeah, that's it. And I wasn't going to accept no. This has to happen. I've
Yeah.
leveraged everything. This has to be
Yeah,
successful.
exactly. Yes. Yeah.
And oh, by the way, I'm a blender, so if I nobody's gonna knock on those doors but me. So
Yes.
if you really want to do this, Brandon, you need to find a yes. And it just
Yes,
so happens I
exactly.
got 3 yeses. And I said, my spin on what we do here, because I wanted a blank canvas as an artist, is I'm not gonna replicate anything. You want the
Yeah.
same thing over and over again. That's what the big brands are for,
Yeah.
not the big brands.
Yeah.
And so released our first product. It was in April of 2021, still during COVID. So that was why we had a line 2 hours long to purchase our first release with
No
quick.
way.
That's crazy. That
So
was
you're worried that people aren't going to show up and then now you got a line.
yeah, and it was interesting times because we didn't grow up with alcohol in my household. Right? So we're
Oh, for
traditional Southern Baptists. My mom thought I was crazy,
they
literally.
always do. They
Yeah,
always do.
you've got this Harvard degree in the military and the corporate career, and you're just throwing it away for alcohol. But she helped me out that day. I needed it. I said, I think we might need some help, and why don't you come be a part of the celebration? And at the end of that day is when she pulled me aside and said, "Look, clearly you're onto something here, and sorry I was worried. I'm a mom. That's kind of
It's our job.
what their job is. But that was kind of my redemption day of doing this crazy thing and to see the public show up and support us. That was probably one of the better days we've ever had.
I love that. And it was it primarily local people or was it
It was people from all over the state.
I love that. I in North Carolina, I mean North Carolina is very business friendly. I mean, so they are I get it. Like they're supporting. I love this. Now, one thing I had cut you off kind of before, and this is probably the longest podcast I've ever done just because I'm so fascinated. But you mentioned why you mentioned you had like an everyday as a train wreck moment way back. What was that moment?
I mean, leading up to that was 8 months of just another setback, another setback,
Yeah.
another setback, and, I took the position of, I'm not just starting a business here, I want to connect with the community and help
Yeah.
uplift the business community.
Yeah.
So when I was getting on these setbacks, throughout the time I met all the influential people in the town, I knew all the elected officials, and the one that about one of the change orders, the changes they want us to make us do was going to be a 2 month delay, and just I ran out of money. So I went to the town and I said, in a nice way, I said, "Look, I'm gonna open. I'm going to open.
Yeah.
However, it's going to be every last penny that I had." But that said, there's no telling how many other businesses didn't make it through this gauntlet over the last 4 years or last few years. And so the town took notice of that, and they actually went to the county to figure
Mm.
out what's going on here. And they supported me. Unfortunately, they had already poisoned the well, the inspection process, and I was essentially screwed.
Yeah.
But after that, the town said, "Look, they essentially fired the inspector that was over this area so that future businesses wouldn't be impacted like that." But that was one thing. And then when I ran out of money, it was like, okay, well, I still have to open 401k I've been growing for years. Well, let's wipe all that thing out. And my wife also reminded me that was the only way we had money to purchase gifts for our kids for Christmas that year too.
Of course you did. Of course you did.
But I was so involved in the blitz, I didn't even, I had forgotten about that. She told
Yeah,
me,
you're like, you forgot about your kids, let alone your kids for Christmas. Yeah, exactly. And I think that's really, really, really important is any startup and I've had my own business, my God, for 30 something years and businesses. And now I'm doing this fire startup thing again, and it is just amazing. And I want to underscore that. No, when you start out and do something, even if you're a serial entrepreneur like I am, yeah, you get your clock cleaned. It is a humbling experience. And I'm glad you're saying that because, people see like, oh, you've got this cool brand, you're this cool guy, da 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 da. And it's like, oh, I'm going to go out and do that. It's like, please do, but realize how much is involved and how much sacrifice and how much everything else because it's so much. And so tell us about today. First of all, like another shout out, Old Raleigh, and your Instagram is what? Old Raleigh.
Old Raleigh Distillery. We're on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. If you want to follow
Love
what I
it.
do on a daily process blending, it's Brandon McCraney on Instagram. I'm pretty active on that. Just
Yep.
showing the
I
world what I
love
do.
that. So tell us what it looks like today and what you're focused on for the future.
Yeah, so today, what it looks like is we are now available in 40 states
Yeah.
online. So you can go on our website and purchase our products. We're in North Carolina stores, we're in Virginia stores, we just expanded into Florida, still looking to get in stores there, but that process has started.
Good.
And we continue to make one-off releases, so we don't replicate anything we do. I've just created a foundation and a canvas where I just get to create every day, and I love what I do. And luckily, I got a team that's bought into the vision that we have here,
Yeah.
and they really set the bar and keep me in line around here. And I mean, I'll give if they're listening, there's a big shout out to them. We're most highly rated distillery and whiskey brand in the state. There's over 5 stars.
Awesome.
They're just awesome.
We've got to do the shout outs to the people who support us with, the employees and the staff and the spouses of all those people because it is, it's night and day for a very long time and there's not enough money in the world I think sometimes to combat the stress that's involved. But so we're really grateful to them to support.
And that's one of the hardest parts too, going out. If you go all in,
Yeah.
being able to entrust people and letting go.
Ugh.
You're
Yeah.
never going to scale if you can't do that. So part of
Right.
that is a growing process as a leader. And that took me a little time to, all right, I can trust these people with this
Yeah.
because I was all in and, they just think it's a job. Well, to some people, it's a career and you
Yeah.
inspire them and they want to grow. But That's also part of that entrepreneurial journey, getting out of that hole, because a lot of people can't get out of that.
You're right. You're right. I love it. Well, this has been an absolute pleasure, Brandon. And I just want to encourage all of our listeners to please make sure to follow you on Instagram. Give a little nod to your staff, and most importantly, to that supportive wife of yours. And this has just been a ball. So we need to find one of those, tree cutting guys that makes the casks to do this next, or the hoopers or the coopers or whatever they are. I also be interested in the bunghole manufacturers. But you guys, that is a wrap on another episode of Every Day's a Train Wreck. I'm Marley Majcher. If you want to watch this whole thing, please go to our YouTube channel so you can see the visuals at the Profit Goddess. And that's that. So follow me Instagram at the Party Goddess. Don't forget to follow Brandon. And this was just a total pleasure. And make sure you like, subscribe, and most importantly, share it with a friend who either is thinking of starting their own business, just wants a cool story, or likes booze. What can I say? All right, Brandon, thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
All
Appreciate
right.
the time.
See you guys next week. Bye-bye.